Tonight, let me say once again to Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, end this occupation. You've done enough.
Minnesota is reeling under the Trump administration's chokehold. ICE presence. Since Renee Good's death, whom Trump and co. labeled a domestic terrorist, residents of the Twin Cities have been outraged over ICE movements in their cities and have started protesting. However, the protests couldn't stop the unannounced ICE raids, but they definitely raised tensions between ICE officials and anti-ICE protesters. The recent incident on January 18th could potentially prompt Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota, as he has threatened. Anti-ICE demonstrators disrupted a prayer service at a Twin Cities church in St. Paul, Minnesota, storming the sanctuary and chanting against immigration and customs enforcement. Protesters targeted the church over claims that one of its pastors also serves as an ICE field office director, linking him to recent enforcement actions. Videos show the group shouting slogans such as "ICE out" and "Justice for Renee Good," in response to the fatal shooting of Renee Good by an ICE agent. In a Truth Social post, President Trump said that he watched footage of agitators storming the church in Minnesota and described them as professionals. He called the group troublemakers and demanded that the insurrectionists be thrown in jail or thrown out of the country. Trump also targeted Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Representative Ilhan Omar, calling them corrupt politicians. Following the incident, the White House press secretary said Trump will not tolerate the intimidation and harassment of Christians at their place of worship. She added that a full investigation into the incident has been launched by the Department of Justice. In a statement on X, ICE said, "Agitators aren't just targeting our officers. Now they're targeting churches too. They're going from hotel to hotel, church to church, hunting for federal law enforcement who are risking their lives to protect Americans." Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon announced a DOJ civil rights investigation within hours, condemning the incident as desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers. Attorney General Pam Bondi said on X that attacks against law enforcement and the intimidation of Christians are being met with the full force of federal law. However, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison has rejected claims that the anti-ICE protesters who stormed a St. Paul church broke the federal laws the Justice Department is examining, saying the statutes cited don't apply to the disruption. DOJ officials are weighing whether the group's actions violated the FACE Act or the Ku Klux Klan Act as part of their ongoing review.
The FACE Act classifies it as a federal offense, punishable by heavy fines and possible jail time, to use or threaten force to injure, intimidate, or interfere with individuals seeking reproductive health services or those lawfully exercising their First Amendment right to religious freedom at a place of worship. Separately, the Ku Klux Klan Act criminalizes actions by individuals that deprive citizens of their civil rights.
Speaking on Don Lemon's YouTube show, Minnesota AG Keith Ellison said the FACE Act applies only to reproductive rights and questioned how it could be used against protesters who disrupted a church service.
The FACE Act, by the way, is designed to protect the rights of people seeking reproductive rights, so that people for a religious reason cannot just use religion to break into women's reproductive health centers. How they are stretching either of these laws to apply to people who protested in a church over the behavior of a religious leader is beyond me.
On January 16th, Governor Tim Walz addressed the ICE presence in the Twin Cities and asked Donald Trump and Kristi Noem to end this occupation.
My fellow Minnesotans, what's happening in Minnesota right now defies belief. News reports simply don't do justice to the level of chaos and disruption and trauma the federal government is raining down upon our communities. 2,000 to 3,000 armed agents of the federal government have been deployed to Minnesota. Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live. They're pulling over people indiscriminately, including U.S. citizens, and demanding to see their papers. And at grocery stores, at bus stops, even at our schools, they're breaking windows, dragging pregnant women down the street, just plain grabbing Minnesotans and shoving them into unmarked vans, kidnapping innocent people with no warning and no due process. Let's be very, very clear. This long ago stopped being a matter of immigration enforcement. Instead, it's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government. Last week, that campaign claimed the life of Renee Good. We've all watched the video. We've all seen what happened. And yet, instead of conducting an impartial investigation so we can hold accountable the officer responsible for Renee's death, the Trump administration is devoting the full power of the federal government to finding an excuse to attack the victim and her family. Just yesterday, 6 federal prosecutors, including the longtime career prosecutor leading the charge to investigate and eliminate fraud in our state's programs, quit their jobs rather than go along with this assault on the United States Constitution. But as bad as it's been, Donald Trump intends for it to get worse. This week, he went online to promise that, quote, "the day of retribution and reckoning is coming." That's a direct threat against the people of this state, who dared to vote against him 3 times, and who continue to stand up for freedom with courage and empathy and profound grace. All across Minnesota, people are stepping up to help their neighbors who are being unjustly and unlawfully targeted. They're distributing care packages and walking kids to school and raising their voices in peaceful protest, even though doing so has made many of our fellow Minnesotans targets for violent retribution. Folks, I know it's scary, and I know it's absurd that we all have to be defending law and order, justice, and humanity while also caring for our families and trying to do our jobs. So tonight, let me say once again to Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, end this occupation. You've done enough. Let me say 4 critical things to the people of Minnesota. 4 things I want you to hear as you watch the news and look out for your neighbors. First, Donald Trump wants this chaos. He wants confusion. And yes, he wants more violence on our streets. We cannot give him what he wants. We must protest loudly, urgently, but also peacefully. Indeed, as hard as we will fight in the courts and at the ballot box, we cannot and will not let violence prevail. You're angry, I'm angry. Angry is not a strong enough word, but we must remain peaceful. Second, you are not powerless, you are not helpless, and you are certainly not alone. All across Minnesota, people are learning about opportunities, not just to resist, but to help people who are in danger. Thousands upon thousands of our fellow Minnesotans are going to be relying on mutual aid in the days and weeks to come, and they need our support. Tonight, I want to share another way you can help. Witness. Help us establish a record of exactly what's happening in our communities. You have an absolute right to peacefully film ICE agents as they conduct these activities. So carry your phone with you at all times. And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution. The third thing I want to say to you tonight is, we will not have to live like this forever. Accountability is coming at the voting booth and in court. We will reclaim our communities from Donald Trump. We will reestablish a sense of safety for our neighbors, and we will bring an end to this moment of chaos, confusion, and trauma. We will find a way to move forward, and we'll do it together, and we'll not be alone. Every day, we are working with business leaders, faith leaders, legal experts, and elected officials from across this country. They've all seen what Donald Trump is trying to do to our state, and they know their states could be next. And that brings me to the 4th thing I want to say tonight, Minnesota, how incredibly proud I am of the way that you've risen to meet this unbearable moment. But I'm not at all surprised, because this is who we are. Minnesotans believe in the rule of law, and Minnesotans believe in the dignity of all people. We're a place where there's room for everybody, no matter who you are or who you love or where you came from. A place where we feed our kids, we take care of our neighbors, and we look out for those in the shadows of life. We're an island of decency in a country being driven towards cruelty. We will remain an island of decency, of justice, of community, of peace. And tonight I come before you simply to ask, don't let anyone take that away from us. Thank you, protect each other, and may God bless the people of Minnesota.